Hi, I'm Adam Breen from Le Vergomonde and Thirsty. And here at Le Vergomonde and Thirsty, we often deal with people who are quite new to the world of wine. Maybe they're young people, maybe it's simply their first time working with wine. So we're here with one of Le Vergomonde's founders, Roch Braillon, who's going to explain to us a little bit about wine. Roch, what is wine?
A very simple question. Wine is this great beverage we have with food or without food, and with friends or without friends.
And what's it made from?
It's made from grapes, and solely grapes. So it's a result of the fermentation of grapes.
So when we hear in tastings that people are tasting a wine or smelling a wine and they smell lemons or grapefruit or raspberries, where does that come from?
It's just the flavor that you can pick while smelling a wine. But basically, if you want to make wine, you really have to use only one single element, which is the grape.
Many different types of grapes or just one single grape?
There are plenty different types of grapes. You may know some of them. You may know Chardonnay, you may know Sauvignon Blanc, you may know Pinot Noir, you may know Merlot, but there are in fact in the world thousands of different grapes. So some grapes are widely grown around the globe, and some grapes are really local and indigenous to a specific region.
And are all grapes good for making wine with?
No. In fact, most of the grapes that we eat are not really good to make wine. And most of the grapes that we use to make wine are not really good to eat.
And grapes come in different colours and different varieties. Tell us something about that.
In fact, there is three different colours in the grapes. There is, and when people like to make things a bit complicated, and basically there is these three different colours. They are a dark blue colour that you might have seen on the table grapes. There is a pink colour, and there is a yellow colour. When people call this colour for the white one, for the yellow one, white, for the pink white, grey, and for the black one, black.
Just to keep things confusing.
Exactly, but the
red one is black.
The red one, yeah, the dark blue one.
The dark blue one is black.
Dark blue one.
We make this as confusing as possible
yes,
in order to intimidate people. Good.
So to start again, the yellow ones are called white, the pink ones are called grey, and the dark blue ones are called black. So that's why you've got Pinot Noir. Noir meaning black in French. This is a dark blue grape. That's why you have Sauvignon Blanc, which is in fact a yellow grape. And that's why you have, for example, Pinot Grigio, which is Grigio meaning grey in Italian, which is a pink grape. Okay.
And is it just the grape type then that you use that makes the difference when it comes to making all of these different wines that we know that exist in the world?
No, the grape is a very fundamental element. That's why winemakers try to make the best grape possible, because what they say in general is 80% of the quality of the wine comes from a grape. But grape is just one of the elements of the flavor of a wine. Of course, there is other place where you grow this grape, because the terroir is important, where you grow it, the climate you have, but also, of course, different wine technique you use. If you age your wine in oak or not, if you make a rosé or a white wine, will make, of course, completely different results.
So people often talk about all these different elements, and one of them that comes up and often people have no idea what it means is this word terroir. What is terroir?
Terroir is something at the same time very simple and very complex. Basically, terroir is in the beginning where you plant your vines and where your grapes come from. You can imagine that if you think of a grape called Chardonnay, if you have a Chardonnay coming from Chablis, or if you have a Chardonnay coming from Australia, or if you have a Chardonnay coming from Burgundy, they will not taste the same. It is the same grape in the origin, but at the end it will not give the same taste. And why? Because the grapes are a bit like loudspeaker of the soils, and it's the soil that will express all the difference in the wines. And when we speak of terroir, so it's really the material of the soil which is important. You can have schist, you can have granitic, you can have volcanic types of soils, but also it's all the life which is inside the soils, because the soil is a living material. We've got plenty of bacteria, worms and insects that bring plenty of different potential nutriments to the vines. And the more nutriments, the more differences, the more complexity also within the grapes.
And people often talk about the weather of a certain area or the climate of a certain area. What's the difference between those things, and how does that affect the grapes?
In fact, on top of the soil being very important, there's different other factors, as you say. There is first maybe the topography. If you are on the flat land and have a really greasy soil, the vines will be really easy to produce a lot of grapes and maybe dilute all its complexity in too many grapes. If you are on top of a hill, you can have much more wind, which is going to dry your grapes. If you are in the middle of a coteau, you will get more draining from the water. So that's an important element. But of course, as you say, climate is a fundamental part of terroir, because whether you have a lot of sun or a lot of wind or a lot of rain, it's going to make really different grapes. So the climate is a very important part of the terroir as well.
And then so we've got this terroir and we've got a certain grape type, and we've got the climate is as we expect it to be, and maybe that year's weather's good. So now we've got some really nice grapes. What are we going to do with them next?
In fact, if we want to speak a little bit of wine making techniques, that's a first impression will be that you're going to use white grapes to make white wines and red grapes to make red wines, which is in fact not true at all. So what you do to make wines, basically you need to harvest your grapes. To make white wines, what you're going to do, you're going to take all your harvest to your cellar, press it, and you're going to have the fermentation happening with just the juice of the grape.
So you press it to squish out the juice and leave everything else behind.
Exactly, and you just use the juice. And whether you have white grapes, pink grapes or black grapes, the juice will be always white.
Because so you will always get a white wine if you just squash the juice and leave everything else behind.
Exactly, but you have the experience if you cut a grape in two, most of the grapes have white flesh. So the juice of the flesh will be white. Okay. So what's going to happen if you have a fermentation is that there's going to be some yeast. We're going to eat the sugar of the juice and transform it into alcohol and carbonated oxygen. So it takes from 2 to 3 weeks, and here you are. Very simple. You've got a white wine.
A white wine. So what's the difference then between making a white wine and making a red wine?
Then for red wine, what you will need is some color, basically. So what you will need is at some point some red grapes or black grapes.
So it doesn't have to be 100% red grapes, but there needs to be mostly, presumably, exactly. Red grapes.
You need the color from the grapes, so you need some black grapes. But
where is that color kept?
So the color is kept within the skin of the grapes. So if you want to make a red wine, what you do is you harvest like the white wine all your grapes, but instead of pressing it and fermenting the juice, you put all your grapes in a vat and you let the fermentation happening with this liquid and the grapes. So what's going to happen is during the fermentation, the skin will break and liberate the anthocyane, which is the color of the red grapes. So at the end of the fermentation, you're going to have the red wine.
So to make a red wine, we need a red grape, and we leave that grape and its pip and its skin all together during the fermentation process.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about making rosé then? Does that all come from pink grapes?
In fact, also sometimes people believe that pink grapes will make pink wine, or that to make pink wines you need to blend white wine and red wine, which is most of the time not the case. So what you need to do to make pink wines or rosé wines is to use one of the other techniques. If you have seen that you have different types of rosé, you've got some very light colored rosé, and you've got some really full colored rosé. To make the light colored rosé, you're going to do like a white wine. And what is going to happen is you're going to make the press very slow, so to get a little bit of the color of the skin.
So we're going to slowly squash these grapes rather than just get the juice out of them straight away.
So you will need some color on your grapes, so you cannot do it with only white grapes. But then there's going to be a very slow press, which is going to take a little bit of the color. And this kind of rosé, in general, they taste a bit like white. They're very, very fresh, very elegant, and very aromatic. On the other side, if you can do the other way, like a red wine. So you keep all your grapes in your vat, but instead of leaving the wine to ferment with the grapes for 2 or 3 weeks, you wait 6 hours or 1 day or 2 days maximum, and then you empty your vat. So between this few hours or a few days that you leave the juice with the skin contact, there will be a bit of color taking in. In general, this kind of rosé, they are darker in color, and they're also a bit richer, a bit fuller, because they take a little bit more from the skins.
Okay, so we've made either a really nice white wine or a really nice rosé wine or a really nice red wine. What are the options then? Do we put it in a bottle and off it goes to the shelf, or how does it work from there?
Yeah, you just, in fact, there's a few other processes during the winemaking that you can do. You can fine your wine to get them a bit clear. You can then filter the wines to really make them super clean. And then the next step is just to bottle them. In fact, on top of getting just the color, you also get some other stuff from the grapes. The most important thing that makes red wine, in fact, is the tannins. And the tannins, they come also from the skin of the grapes. So that's what, when you do red wines, you end up with a wine which has a bit more structure, which comes from the skin of the grapes.
How do you feel tannin when you're tasting wines?
You feel it's really a physical feeling, in fact, rather than a taste. It's really this dry thing you have got on your gum. It's a bit like when you drink tea and you have some really dryness when you let your tea infuse too much. Mm-hmm. Tea has got tannins exactly the same as wine. So you can have this structure or body or tannins that you feel in tongue, on your palate, and on your gums.
So the tannin will make a big difference to what happens to the wine after we decide to bottle it or do whatever next. And
that's a good point, because for the white wines, most of the time, then you're going to bottle them without doing any aging, as we call it. Even though some white wines are aged in oak.
And aging is simply letting the wine get older.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And you can age your wines in vats, or you can age your wines in oak. It's going to bring different stuff. The oak will add some flavor, and the oak will add also some tannins. So a lot of red wines are aged in oak, and this will take a bit more time for these wines to be ready to be drunk. Mm-hmm. In fact, because you add some more tannins from the oak, it will take a little bit more time for the wine to absorb all these tannins.
Because those tannins need to integrate and settle down. Is that the idea?
Yeah. And that's why you keep your red wines most of the time longer. Because the tannins needs a bit of time to settle and to smoothen.
So you don't necessarily then take a wine, make it, put it in a bottle, and send it out straight to the shop. You can sit on a wine for quite a long time.
Some of the wines you can drink very young, and you can drink them on the date of their vintage, so when on the year they've been harvested. Some of the wines need a bit more time. In general, the more tannins, the more richness, the better it is to wait a little bit to drink them.
So, in your opinion, what proportion of wines should be drunk old? Because people often say if a wine's old, it's good. Does that apply to all wines? No? What proportion do you think does it apply to?
It's difficult to speak of proportion, but it's really a question of taste. If you feel when you drink your wine that it's got really strong tannins and it's really astringent, there is a good chance that your wine is a bit too young, so better leave it for another couple of years.
Perfect. Well, Roch, thanks very much for helping us learn a bit more about Wine 101 and learn a bit more about what happens when you're taking grapes from a vineyard and getting it into the bottle, hopefully in front of a very appreciative client.
My pleasure.